don't believe too much in like what customers are talking about. Like if you're building a new product and if you have like very strong intuition on why it will work, I would say this is like one of those times where like multiple products like iPhone could come out, which is like if you go ask people, they won't really tell you like your product is what they need. But if you just go build it and show it, they would really get it. So my hunch with AI space is that you can't validate problems by asking people because like they won't get it. A friendly customer won't tell you to like this doesn't make sense. I'm not going to use anything even close to this, right? They'll be like, okay, yeah, you know what? Like maybe if you do this, you can go use it. Maybe if you can do this, maybe we can use it. But like you end up spending 6 months, right? And it's they're trying to do their best to accommodate you in some way. But like truthfully, you don't want people to accommodate you because that's like the whole point.
That's product market fit.
Product market fit.
Product market fit.
I called it the product market fit question.
Product market fit.
Product market fit.
Product market fit.
Product market fit.
I mean, the name of the show is Product Market Fit.
Do you think the Product Market Fit show has product market fit? Because if you do, then there's something you just have to do. You have to take out your phone. You have to leave the show 5 stars. It lets us reach more founders and it lets us get better guests. Thank you. Soham, welcome to the show, man.
I appreciate you having me.
No, dude, I'm excited to have you. I mean, you're one of the. I mean, we're doing this new series. We've done, Cluely, Whisperflow, Hydra, kind of these new, really hot AI apps. Obviously, AI is kind of taking over the world, and I find a lot of them at the helm are young founders like yourselves that are just killing it. Frankly, I mean, you just raised like a $30 million Series A from Lightspeed a couple months ago, and as far as I understand, you have how many users using your platform?
Yeah, at this point, like more than 100,000 developers.
100,000 devs, crazy, and just in your 2-year-old company. So, yeah, man, let's dive into that. I mean, we'll get. I mean, maybe just a first question, right? Like in the simplest terms possible, non-technical as much as you can. Like, what does Composio actually do?
Think about it this way. If you are a developer or if you are even a vibe coder, you're looking to build an AI agent and you want that AI agent to sort of work with real world, right? So you want the agent to essentially talk to Salesforce, talk to Gmail, talk to Outlook, do a bunch of different tasks on it, right? What you would realize is you go through a bunch of like small issues, like you face like authentication and authorization problems, you face like integration issues, then you face reliability issues. And all of this combined take a lot of your sort of bandwidth. What we offer is like a single platform that essentially solves all of these problems for you. So as someone who's building any AI agent that is looking to interact with the world, you can just use Composio, SDK, APIs, whatever, and like go live with like real world use cases very quickly.
And is this different than, I mean, in the world of like maybe more typical SaaS, like you got these companies like Merge that came along and there's a bunch of others that are just like these integration platforms, right? So instead of building your own integrations, you might rely on them. Is that what you're doing, but for AI agents, like in this AI world?
Yeah, that's a cool way to think about it, right? Like integration world in general has like a bunch of these different companies. So your Merge, you have like sort of Zapiers and like GS. Like what you could think of Composio in a way is like we do the same thing in a very specific manner, specifically for like agents and LLMs.
Got it. Well, let's kind of start at the beginning. I mean, and especially since there's not a long timeline, right, to go over. But what's your background? Like, where does the original idea for Composio come from?
Composio started sometime in 2023. This was basically me in like a product manager role, engineering manager role in my previous company, learning like the difficulties, like typical sort of team faces while doing a bunch of integrations.
Where were you? What company?
So I was in like a company called Bureau. Bureau essentially does fraud and risk management. We started with a very simple idea, which is like for every company out there, they essentially go through this hyperscaling phase where like a lot of like users sign up and like some of these users are not the best of like breed. And like what you want to do is you want to like detect those users very early on. So we created a like platform to sort of.
And what stage of a company was it?
So I joined in as like the first person in the company. And I basically went through Series A, and like the hyperscaling phase. Ended up sort of at some point like we were like 50 plus people in 2023 when I was sort of now they're Series B and like above. So yeah, they've been just growing like phenomenally.
And did you have all other jobs before this, or like were you in school before?
So before this, I started a startup. I started a startup in like consumer AI. So my journey has been like I ended up doing my schooling in like 2017. Started a startup back then. The startup was into like consumer sort of AI space. Like we're basically building like chatbots. Ended up like going towards like enterprises, like selling to larger enterprises, some of the largest ones in Asia. Exited my company back in 2019. I wanted to like something like more chiller because like startups are like exhausting.
Good big exit, or like good small exit, or what kind of situation was that?
It was like a small exit essentially, nothing life
But still
changing.
still like a positive sort of end to the journey.
Yes, I think like uh pretty positive because there's like interesting learnings and very intense like sort of 1.5 years like ended up teaching me a lot. Ended up sort of deciding that wanted something like a little more calmer. Decided to join as like the founding engineer. Didn't anticipate like that was anything but calm, right? Like we could probably go
I could have
through
helped you
the
there, man. I could have told you that. Yeah.
yeah. So they go through the same journey, right? So went through the same thing again for like 3 years. I went through like this time was like bit more like into like let's say successful, and so we went to like the scaling part very quickly, very early on. Ended up like sort of growing the team from 0 to 15 people. That was like amazing, learning a bunch, and yeah, going through sort of this whole sales led motion, product led motion, but did a bunch of different things in the meanwhile, essentially at the company. Yeah.
And what do you see? I mean, like November 2022, ChatGPT goes out. Obviously, it's a crazy moment. Were you playing with GPT a lot before that, or was that kind of when you started to kind of go into this world?
Yeah, I was one of the early users of GPT-2, the beta users out there. It was horrible, by the way. Like, yeah, it was good, but like you don't really think like, okay, this is like something that could actually be like practically useful. It's just like very interesting, so you play with it. Yeah, I think like the perspective changed in those 6 months, right? Because like I've been thinking about this problem for a very long time. It's like which is like it's like software connecting to another software is like so painful. And like as developers, you kind of hate doing the work, but like you have to because it's like one of the most integral things in your product. And so the idea was like, how do you solve for it? And like practically you just can't because like every software has a very different interface, every other software has a very different interface. And so like how do you connect these two interfaces that just look very different, right? uh and like a bunch of these companies came up, right, like that you talked about, and everyone's trying to do the same, but like if you go to like consumers and like you go to like people who use them and like you ask them, they all kind of hate it because it's just like the problem occurs, which is like in the 6 months period they are like all good, but after that, it's just like, oh, I have to do so much custom work to actually make it working for me.
Is it because, I mean, my non-technical understanding of it is there's different levels of integrations, and so you might get like an integration to say HubSpot through MergeDev or whatever, but then you decide, oh, I actually wanted to do this other thing and it's not supported, and so now you somehow have to, like you say, customize it, and you end up doing a lot of the work anyways, and so you're like, what am I, what am I paying for this thing for?
Exactly, right? Like, so at some point, like, it's almost like comical, but like your NPS is like 10, 10, 10, 10, 10. And then as like the time increases, your NPS drastically starts decreasing because like everyone like starts discovering this 10 other things they want to do with those integrations and they just can't. And like it just becomes a very painful thing, right? So that is the problem, right? And like my thinking was that back then, it's like LLMs could solve for it if like we just had like that magical code generation that just like allowed me to connect any software to any software. Been playing around with like GPT-2, then like sort of so ChatGPT, DaVinci, like all of those things coming. And like at some point I thought like I felt enough confidence that okay, this thing is improving at a rate where if I make a bug today and like maybe like a year or 2 years down the line, it will just be like good enough where like the tech would actually like get to that point where I could like maybe solve for this problem. And that's how we sort of like ended up starting a company.
What did you need? I mean, maybe just again walk me through like what did you need the AI for in given what you, because that's, I mean, now you're doing, obviously it's for AI agents, but I don't think it was at the beginning. So like at that point when you're seeing the stuff with GPT, where does the AI fit into your product at that stage?
Sure. So think about it this way. So I have like a interface on like left side and I have an interface on the right side. I want to connect it together. That connection requires customized code. So the way you think about like this problem is that typically with any integration product, like there's a 30% or 20% product component, there's a 60 to 70% service component 1 year down the line. Because like a lot of this customization is actually powering this product and finally everything is coming together. And like the idea was like this sort of service component or like where some human is writing code is like really crappy. Nobody really likes to do it. And like it makes the end-to-end experience very bad. What AI could potentially solve for was like the automation of that service component. So the idea in the beginning was that what if we built a product and that product could essentially have in some way like an adjustable layer that like this sort of AI could come in and like adjust basis of the interface on the left side and on the interface on the right side, and suddenly through basically some magical thing I could connect both the interfaces together without any services, without anything coming in between.
When you talk about the service, what do you mean by the service layer? Like, is that's the maintenance piece, or what's that piece?
Exactly. It's like a bunch of people coming in and adjusting the code to fit the interface. So I will tell you an example. Let's say I am looking to get like name, email, and like maybe address of the user from my CRM, right? And like Salesforce has some way they integrate, right? And like, so maybe they have this two fields, name and email, but they store address in like maybe address one, address two, pin code, and something like that. Maybe HubSpot does it differently where they have a single field address where the complete address is stored. And so like when I'm trying to like get this data into my database, right, which maybe stores it in something like address and pin code, like those are the two fields, I had to do a bunch of transformations to essentially solve for it. And those transformations are taught by like a developer out there who's writing custom code, right? To essentially make sure that like the data from Salesforce gets transformed in some way, data from HubSpot gets transformed in some way. And like what my thinking was that if code generation could become really good, we could essentially have this magical thing that could understand like what the data is stored on the right side with, what is the data on the left side with, and it could essentially write these transformations and everything on the fly. And like if the transformations need to change because maybe my database schema changed, it could be a very simple update that could essentially allow me to change those things.
And so once you see this and you kind of see the potential for AI to do this in terms of integrations, how quickly do you leave the startup that you're at? How do you make that decision?
I think it was like pretty much like in a month or so, because like I think like the way I operate is like if there's a problem that I can't stop thinking about, like at some point you understand that this is a problem that really matters to you, and so you are just like, yeah, I really need to do this, right? Like I think like I can't really work on anything else right now. That's all I'm thinking about is this problem. So that ended up happening very soon afterwards, right?
When was this, by the way?
So this was like somewhere around April and May, 2023, because like I saw just like coding becoming like really good. I saw some of like the weekend hacks that I ended up building, coming out with like really good results, and so that just gave me a lot more confidence. So the project kind of started as weekend hacks, right? It's just like I used to like hack over weekends, like a bunch of these things. With my friends, and like some of these things turned out to be pretty good. And so I was like, okay, this makes sense. I should maybe like, think about going full time on this. Yeah.
And was it just you at the time, or did you have co-founders right away?
No, so I had a co-founder who was like founded a previous startup with. So it was like we both knew each other from a very long time. And so it was like pretty easy. Like we both do a bunch of like projects together, and we both know each other since last like 12 years now. So yeah, it was like with him essentially, and we both started it together.
And so what's your, like, do you go out and once you decide to leave, like, do you raise money right away? Do you start building for a bit? What's your kind of first move?
Yeah. So my co-founder was newly married, and he just had a daughter. For him, it was imperative that we go out with some security because it's not something you want to do right after having a kid, right? We ended up like going to VCs, and we ended up like raising some money, right? Like after like leaving the job and like starting up, simply because we wanted some level of security in like our mind, like if this doesn't work out, we can still pay our salaries, at least some base level salaries. Yeah.
How much did you raise?
We ended up raising like close to 4 million. 4.5.
How was that? I mean, 2023 was an interesting time where the markets had actually kind of been crashing, not a great time, but then AI was on the rise. How did you find, raising for an AI seed stage company at that time?
I think it was not hard, not easy, as you said. Like there was a mix of reactions, but like also like we did have like some reputation because of like the previous things we had ended up building and like the companies we were coming from. So I think those reputation, like that reputational like advantage kind of helped. Also, I think like 2023 was pretty wild in a way because like it was like I would say months of like extreme FOMO and months of on the VC's hand, right? And like months of like extreme, oh, I don't want to invest in anything, right?
Yes.
So I think we just got lucky with timing. I really would think like maybe if we would have raised like couple of months later, we might not have been able to, and like before might not have been able to. It's just like you need to raise at the right time when you see like things
Were
happen.
these VCs that you knew from before, or did you just kind of run a process? Like, how did you get around it going?
No, so I knew them from before. Some of them I knew from before. Some of them was like just introductions of friends, and that ended up helping us out.
So so now you have the money. I mean, you got your co-founder. Do you build like a first product of this? Do you try and validate the problem, or are you confident in the problem itself? Like, where's your mind? What's the biggest risk at this stage in the company?
Yeah, I like okay. So my hunch with AI space is that you can't validate problems by asking people because like they won't get it. So the advantage we had was like we kind of had seen the problem before. We were facing the problems in our like previous ventures, so we understood it very quickly, and we kind of also understood that this is something definitely worth solving for. Like problem validation was not top of the mind. I also don't think like if I would have like pitched it to 20 people, like let's say all of them would have gotten it, right? Like I would have probably been able to convince maybe 4 or 5 of them.
Why is that, by the way? Like, I'm just curious on it because the flip side is it's funny with AI. I do find that you're right in what you're saying of problem validation not being the problem, I should say, because it's like a little bit of AI kind of it feels like magic. So it's almost like this: if you build it, they will come. Like, yo, if I could give you, every single integration you ever wanted without having to do anything, would you want that? Like, yeah, of course. Like, who wouldn't, right? But you're saying a lot of people might not have gotten it.
No, so exactly, right? Like, so they would have just like called bullshit on it essentially, which is like, this seems too good to be true, right? And so that's the reason they would have not wanted it, right?
I see. Okay.
Which is like, yeah, of course, like what you exactly like, of course, you give me free money, I'll take it, but like, could you, right? Like,
So it was about. So really, the key thing was making it work, building it.
exactly. The key thing was like, is the tech there? So we started like building coding agents back in 2023. We were basically trying to figure out like how to build good coding agents back then. So we ended up like testing out a bunch of frameworks. Agent was not even a thing back then. Like agent became a thing like I think a bit later. So for us, it was just like we're trying to figure out tool calling. We're trying to figure out like, okay, how to connect like this LLMs with GitHub and all. We're trying to like almost make an AI engineer that could just do integrations. We're basically literally building like Devin for integrations, right? Ended up realizing that this is not a problem that is going to get solved, but like that took a bit of a time, right? I think that took like 6 months to like it took us 6 months to come to the realization that this is not a problem technically that could get solved. 6 months we had.
How many people were you at that time? Like in those 6 months?
We're like 4 people at this point.
Okay, so you kind of saved the money. You banked the money, and you just the four of you kind of huddle up, trying to make this thing work.
Yeah, I don't think we even spent like 100K out of it in the
Yeah,
6 months.
on
Like, it
four
was-
people. Yeah.
So we had all the money. We just didn't want to spend it until we were sure like we were spending it on the something, right? We also had customers, so we had like again like I think good reputation comes in handy because you could just go talk to your friends and they're like, "Yo, if I could give you all the integrations, would you want it?" And they're like, "Sure, yeah, of course." And so that's how we started doing like a POC with Glean. Glean was like a pretty large company back then. Like they had integrations as a problem, so of course it made sense for them to do a POC. We ended up doing that. Yeah, so we had like a very large enterprise customer looking to, like enterprise.
They're
like,
paying like a 6-figure type POC, like material.
they were
dollars.
ready to pay more than that if like it goes well, right? And like what we realized while building it for them was, okay, this is not going to work. Like clearly the tech is not there, right? Like I think like we are like maybe 2 generations or 3 generations of LLM away. I still remember, I think we used to think like GPT-5 would solve it. maybe. And like, we didn't know GPT-5 would take this longer time to come out, but like, yeah, that was the hunch. I still think it's not a solvable problem today, maybe like one generation away.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. But like, yeah, that's how we started, right? Like,
So 6 months, I mean, you're 6 months in, it's probably what, end of 23, beginning 2024, you're realizing, yeah, this thing's not, it's not going to fly.
yeah, this thing's on it. Yeah, exactly. And at some point we decided, okay, like, you know what, we have to like figure out what the fuck we are going to do. So one of the other problems we realized while doing all of this was like, we ended up like writing a lot of integrations for our agents. And I was like, at some point the epiphany came in the team. It's like, okay, why are we building integrations for like the old school software? Like let's just build integrations for like the new age software, right? Like, and that's how we sort of got into the other, like I would say the next gen of Composio, which was like, okay, let's just go build integrations for like AI agents out there, right? And that was like pretty cool, I would say, because like that was like again a problem that we kind of realized we faced. We faced it extensively, in fact, right? And it also made sense because like most people were yet to figure out this problem because like we're playing with coding agents way back. I don't think like many teams in the world were playing with that much coding agents like back in those days.
And this problem, let me just understand this. Like this problem surfaces because you're trying to build coding agents that build integrations from say HubSpot to from HubSpot to X or Salesforce to Y, whatever. And in so doing, you need these agents to actually access, those destinations. And so you're kind of running into this agent to whatever integration problem. Like you're probably one of the first people ever to run into it because who else? There's not that many people in the world building with AI agents in, mid 2023 or so.
Yeah, and like tool calling was not super stable. A bunch of other things were like not like mostly done. And so like apart from like a lot of other problems we faced while building those agents, like this was one of the other like this was I would say one of the interesting problems we found. And I was like, okay, let's just go solve this problem right now, which is like, how do I make it super easy for someone who's building maybe something like Composio to essentially go live with their agents, right? And so that's how Composio came into the new generation of product, essentially.
And what's the difference fundamentally between building an integration from two legacy softwares to each other and from an agent to access Gmail or to access HubSpot or whatever it is?
I think a bunch of things change, right? So like your old school integrations would be like completely deterministic integrations, like, but like when you think about agentic integrations, they're like more so at that point in time, tool calling was the only thing. So it was like, okay, how do you build like this JSON schemas that can take inputs? How do you make it like super reliable? Because like LLMs can't understand complicated like tools or complicated like sort of integrations essentially. How do you solve for authentication? Because like if I wanted to connect an agent to my Gmail, like even today, like if you do it without any tool out there, it will take you a long time because you have to just go solve the OAuth stuff first. You have to make sure that you need to like basically like you can do it like a bunch of hacky ways, but if you want to do it in production, like in a nice way, it's just like so much hassle, right? And so we went through all of that, and like at some point we're like, we just need to like use the same tech, but make that tech into a product rather than like basically using it for like our end product at some point. Yeah.
But I'm just trying to, what I'm trying to get is like when you're talking about, Gmail, and I understand like, I guess the deterministic versus non-deterministic piece, but in terms of the integration layer, is it just that you have to now kind of take into account when it's going to be called, how it's going to be called, when the agent's going to decide that it needs to use a particular tool? Like what are the pieces that you have to build that you maybe didn't have to build before, or just the differences between, the two worlds of integrations?
Sure. So basically, when you think about agentic integrations and like how agents consume sort of like integrations, they consume it in a different way. Okay, so I'll give an example. So when I was thinking about like, let's say no code integrations or like integrations in the early age, I'm let's say trying to create a lead on HubSpot. Maybe the lead requires like a category, and that category would be a drop down. So the category would be shown to me in a UI. So I would say, hey, I can select a specific category of the customer. Maybe this is a sort of sales, maybe like a sort of HR company or something like that, right? But like when it comes to agents, you are not actually showing them a UI. You are giving them all the right APIs and the right APIs into like this layer that agent can understand. And like for a long time, that layer was like a JSON schema that you had to pass in like sort of an LLM call that the agent can consume. And like so the whole DX of how you do it changes drastically. And so it's not as much as a change in like underlying core logic, but it's like a really big change in like the way a developer consumes the whole thing. So it's a more of a like change on the consumption side, but also because of now the change in developers' way of consuming how integrations are used with agents, there's a lot of changes on the way you think about an integration. So like an agentic Gmail integration would be designed entirely differently than a normal like sort of Gmail integration that is like designed for humans to use. Because like the way agent navigates Gmail is like pretty different compared to the way sort of a human navigates Gmail. An example would be like, okay, if I take an email out and that email has extremely long contacts, and if you feed it directly to the agent will just break, right? Because like it just can't consume that much context, right? But a human could essentially keep consuming context, keep figuring out like in going about it. So it's like the way you design the API would be different. Like the way you think about like an agentic sort of integration is like entirely different. And I think this kind of there's a field of it, like research field around it. This is like agent computer interface, ACI, that you could look into, right? There are like other ways like you could think about it, which is like a lot of studies done around like function calling benchmarks, which is the technical way of looking at like how sort of LLMs interact with different systems out there. So yeah, there's a bunch of work around it, but like yeah, it's like how do I make it so that like when your iPhone is customized just for you, you use it so much better? How do I customize this like integration of Gmail just for an agent out
Right.
there,
No, that makes a lot of sense.
right? And like how do I make it super more optimal? Yeah.
And how does the team, like, as you decide to effectively pivot into this, is everybody aligned? All four of you are like, yeah, this is the thing, or is there any like misalignment or conflict internally about whether this is the actual thing you should do?
I don't think there was like conflict, but like people didn't get it right. I think it's very hard to button some problem that maybe you saw but like nobody in the world sees. Like if you Google search, oh, is anyone else facing this issue? Okay, nobody else comes up.
No one's there
And you're
yet.
like,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, this is like too ahead of its time, right? Like, are we actually betting on something real? And so there's always this conflict, but at some point, like you kind of have to make calls like, okay, here that's the bet I'm willing to die on, right? Like, which is like, if this doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, right? And then like people don't trust the bet, but they trust you, and like they're like, okay, I just ride with it. So yeah, that's how it went essentially.
And then did you go into another kind of 3 or 6 months of just build phase, or what was the next phase? Like, what did the first half of 24 look like?
Yeah, so this time building was like pretty easy. So it was like, oh, we know the problem, we have kind of solved it, we know how to go about it. So building took us like 2 months, right? Maybe. And like, so it was like, I think we built and like we got a product out by March or something, March end or like something like that, right? Of 2024. And once the product was out, we started basically, this time we didn't want to do the mistake of like getting a friendly customer, because like a friendly customer is like good and bad. It's good because it's like easy to find. It's bad because it just end up giving you wrong signals maybe sometimes.
Were they too friendly? Is that what you found? Like, they were too accommodating? Like, you know what I mean? So you didn't get that kind of real, like, dude, this is shit. Like, I'm not going to use it. It was just kind of too much like, yeah, okay, we'll try it here, we'll try it there, wanting to make it work.
Exactly, right? Like a friendly customer won't tell you to like won't be like, okay, like I'm not just going to use this. Like this doesn't make sense. I'm not going to use anything even close to this, right? Like they'll be like, okay, yeah, you know what? Like maybe if you do this, you can go use it. Maybe if you can do this, maybe we can use it, right? And like it's like, yeah, but like you end up spending 6 months, right? And it's they're trying to do their best to accommodate you in some way, but like truthfully, you don't want people to accommodate you, because that's like the whole point, right? Which is like, if you want real PMF, you don't want people to like use you because they know you or whatever. They should be like just so sad about not getting anything out there that as soon as they see you, they use you. It's like very different kind of
It's so
thing.
funny, man. You say this now, and it's kind of clicking for me because I've seen this happen several times with repeat founders, especially where because they have these relationships, it is an edge, but sometimes a kind of weak value prop product goes way further than it should, and they have these great logos and they can cite these big customers. And what's happening is probably what you're describing, like people that are like, yeah, I know this guy, CEO is like, dude, just make it happen, or CTO or whatever, someone really important, just tell somebody else to like go ahead and work with them. And ultimately they just all you're doing is taking longer to face reality. Like, because the market either is gonna love it or they're not.
Yeah, I think so I used to do some trading like in part time, but like essentially like that's the thing, right? It is like market always tells you the truth at the end of the day. You just want to get to the truth faster. Right. So like that was a learning, major learning for me, which is like I understood and never want to talk to a friendly customer ever. Um, I just want to like find people who don't know me and like make sure that they like my product at the end of the day. And if they do, I think like I'm like just moving in the right direction at the end of the day. Yeah. So that was the idea.
So how did you go out and do this with Q2 or whatever 24? You have the product. Like, how did you go out and get new customers?
So there's this field of like study around like tool calling and accuracy around tool calling. So the thing is like if you want to integrate LLMs with like anything out there or agents with anything out there, you have to do what is like tool calling, right? Like you have to use tool calling to connect an LLM to Gmail, for example. And so it clearly was something every single user of ours or like potential user of ours would go through, which is like,
And this was, by the way, sorry to interrupt, but like this, just the background here. This was when GPT was putting out in ChatGPT like these tools. I don't know if they've gone anywhere honestly within ChatGPT, but like there was this whole thing about like a ChatGPT app, and you would call tools and whatever. Was this similar time frame?
It was similar, but it was actually before. Basically, in fact, it was, I think, quite a way before because, like, this is an abstraction they came up with so that, like, LLMs could interact with systems outside, right? So, LLM in itself is like a text in, text out, but like programming is like code is like kind of structured and deterministic. So how do you go from text out to like code, right? And so the layer between is like, in a way, the way I think about it is tool calling, right? So it allows LLM to generate like a structured JSON that could like represent, hey, what's the weather in New York today? And then that query goes to like a function out there, an API out there that comes back with, hey, the weather today is this, and then LLM consumes that response and like basically shows you a text saying, hey, today the weather in New York is like very sunny, have a great day, right? Something like that. So it's a way LLM can interact with a system outside the sort of LLM itself and like basically get some data that it needs in real time. The way I think about like any integration is like you want to interact with Gmail or HubSpot or whatever, you have to go through tool calling essentially. And like that's the technical term. And what we realized was nobody was talking about it because tool calling kind of sucked. And like if you tried actually making something in production back then, it won't work. And so what we did was we basically wrote a really nice blog and like some code structure and like some examples out there on GitHub. We put it out and we said like, hey, here's like some good ways you could improve tool calling. And like it just hit the right audience because every person who was dealing with that problem was like, okay, this is so interesting, this is exactly what I wanted. Can I go and like do some of these techniques to maybe in my code base to improve my tool file? And like they were like very simple, very nice, like described ways of like improving tool calling, and everyone kind of ended up liking it. It went like viral on Reddit, it went viral at a bunch of different places, and like we got like insane traffic because of it. And that's how we got our initial users.
When was this exactly?
I think this was somewhere around March or April last year, basically.
Oh, okay. So that was all the same time frame.
Yeah, it was all the same time frame. So basically, this time I wanted to get like independent users, so I started reading up on content and like all of those things. I ended up like doing some of these things in parallel to the product development to make sure we start getting like users out there. Yeah, so that like went really well, I would say. Ended up like getting a bunch of like people to look into us, like keep checking us out and like try our product out, and that gave us a lot of feedback. I started just like basically talking to a lot of them. In parallel, also there's another way we went, which was like Discord communities. So think about it this way, like this is back like year back, but like Discord communities for a lot of this agentic frameworks were like kind of like really big. And like you would probably have like more than 10,000 people in some of these communities, like developers who are building actual agents out there or who are like trying to build like some interesting applications with LLM out there. And like basically I just went and started spamming a bunch of them. And like the spam was really nice. It's like, hey, here's an article we wrote, right? Like that talks about tool calling, or here's like an example, like something like some really cool sort of demo we created, right? And like check it out. And like a lot of people really liked it, right? Like and so they started responding that, and a lot of like founders of those communities, like I still remember like Crew AI founder essentially put out a Twitter post saying, hey, this is like one of the coolest things I found today. And that is like pretty good, right? That was like first time someone recognized us on Twitter, and like that got us a bunch of users. So I think like things like those ended up helping out a lot, like because you kind of had to do a lot of work. Like you had to be compatible with Crew AI, for example. You had to do a lot of work to become compatible. You had to spend a lot of effort in creating that example. But like then it hit the exact users that you wanted to hit, and so that ended up getting us a lot of traction. And yeah, so that was how
What
the top of the
one
funnel.
one question I have is like back then, where was the product? Like how many of these tool calling like integrations did you have? How many tools were you able to kind of support?
We had very little, right? Like so we had like maybe 10 integrations or something like that at that point, right? Because like integrations are hard, and if you want to sort of build integrations, it takes time. So we were trying to build integrations in parallel, but at that point we are very, very, very few integrations.
And so what like the people that come in that early April, May 2024, what are they even using? I mean, they're stuck with just using the 10 integrations that you support.
Yeah, exactly. But like the way we went about it was like we essentially had this like chat box on the website. Like Intercom's great that way. You can essentially pop up the chats at a bunch of places. And so we used to have customized chat pop-ups on integration screens saying, oh, looking for more integrations, talk to me. And like I can help you out. So I ended up booking like, I don't know, 10 to 20 calls a day for like couple of months. And that was like huge because I used to just talk to
Actually 10 to 20 a day?
yeah, so some of them were like no shows, some of them, of course, like were like shows. But like, yeah, but like all in all, I would say I averaged more than 10 calls a day for a very long time. Yeah,
And this was what, like 15-minute calls, people telling you what they wanted to see from the product?
exactly. And like it was very high. Okay, I would say it's like very high signal because you had a lot of like people who just were trying like AI for the hype around it or like something like that. But you did meet like a lot of very interesting people who like told you about like what they were trying to build and like how potentially Composio could be useful or something like that, right? And so yeah, that turned into a very good sort of product, like roadmap or insights for us, which is like how should we be thinking about the next like few months, what should we be building, how should we be going about it, like what are the things people want to see, stuff like that. Yeah.
And for the rest, the ones that where you had integrations that you supported that they wanted to use, were you charging or was it free to use? Like how did you set up the business model at the beginning?
No, so I think I never cared about pricing for for a very long time. I think we still don't care that much about like charging people per se. Because like the way I think about it is in the early stages of market, you just want to know like where the pulse is at, right? Like you want to know what people find useful, what people like like want to see more, right? Like what are the things that are missing in your platform. I think like for me, at least the way I used to think about it was like a lot of these folks are like independent developers who are doing personal projects because they're like very interested in the new tech. And like to charge them right now is like kind of a disservice to them as well as me, because the value they get is they want to build something cool. The value I get is like I get to learn from what they're building to how to improve the product. And like pricing is something that we can all like getting value out of the product is something we can always do later.
How has that evolved? Like do you just have like it's free to use up to this many API calls and then it's some price per API call, or what's the model?
Yeah, exactly. So we have a usage-based model. It's very generous, right? Like, so for anyone out there, they can come start with Composio. They can actually scale to a pretty high volume out there without worrying about it, without worrying about the pricing. And then after that, like we have something like, hey, here's like a base tier, like $29 plan that can get you this much usage. And then like, if you scale beyond this use, like here's how much you pay for like $1 million API calls or something like that.
And so then back to the storyline, like you put out that blog, people come in, you post on Discord, whatever. And then what keeps it going? Is it just pure word of mouth, or do you have like these other viral moments that kind of keep the slope going up?
Yeah, we did like programmatic SEO. So like one of the things that I wanted to do was I wanted to understand like what integrations people want. But like how would you know that? Like you have to talk to everyone. But the other like hacky way I understood I could know that was I just ended up creating like um a lot of pages that just said, oh, integrate, I don't know, LangChain with like HubSpot, right? And like using Composio. And like basically someone would come on that page, that would be a signal to me that okay, someone really wants to do HubSpot with LangChain, and maybe I should like make sure that I sort of prioritize that. So we did that. That worked really well until like at some point, like I think users are pissed, like, oh shit, like you don't really have it. Like, why are you like advertising that? like, uh, yeah, I think and at some point we decided like, okay, we should not like probably have like random pages like this. So we removed it. But like in the early days, I think that helped a lot. Yeah.
Give me a sense of the numbers, like how many developers, users did you get on a monthly basis in those first months, and then how quickly, like now you're over 100,000. Like what did that year of growth look like?
In the early days, like till like probably June, July, we didn't have more than let's say 1,000 users. It was super slow because people who signed up and like actually understood like tool calling or like building agents and stuff were very like people who kind of actually had use cases were far and few. Uh, and like a lot of folks did come on the website and stuff. Like we had like probably I think at some point like in those days maybe like 20,000 to 30,000 sort of visits like sometime around June July on the website, which is like pretty nice because of like a bunch of reasons like programmatic SEO and stuff, right? And so people who came on the website were many, but the people who signed up and actually like used us were very few. I think because LLMs just didn't work. And so this number didn't increase for a very long time. This number started increasing like sometime in like sort of the second half of the last year when like models just became better and like you could actually build real world agents out there that kind of worked and a lot of like startups coming in, right? And so then it like scaled very quickly to way more users, right? And like way more people sort of building on top of us. And so the number I think ideally scaled in like September, sometime in September last year, like started scaling then, right? Till then, it was just like word of mouth. Okay, it's something good. I think it's useful, but I don't think my agents actually work. Do I really use this, right? Like stuff like that.
So in September, you've got a few thousand users, and now what is it? 10 months later, you're at 100,000.
Yeah, exactly. So then it started scaling pretty rapidly. Then like I think the scale up to a point was till like I would say till MCP came up and MCP became big, which is like sometime around March or April, like this year. I think it was like scaling like at a scale. Then with MCPs, the scale became even bigger because like MCP had like a very good hype around it. And so like the other thing I realized was like you have to latch on to the good like hype cycles in AI because like they're one of the good ways you can find people like if the hype curve is right, like if you're actually latching onto the right hype cycle and like people actually find value from what you're building in that specific hype cycle, it's like a really cheap way to get a lot more users, right? And so we started getting way more users after MCP became big and like basically a lot more folks started building on top of us. So those were like the two transitions I would say in the last 1 year where like we had like a different scale of users coming in essentially.
What is like, because you're so in the middle of it, like what is the big difference in your view between the MCP and kind of just like, the APIs you were dealing with before?
Yeah, sure. So essentially before MCP, it was like, okay, here are like all the tools out there and you can like go integrate those tools, right? With MCP, it just became for us, here's like an MCP compatible way. Like essentially the platform and the core integrations remain the same. The quality of those integrations remain the same, but you can use us via MCP also. And so it just becomes like or different way you could use this. And a lot of developers would end up like using through MCP also, would end up like directly using Composio platform also. Um, the difference though is now that we are going into sort of a higher abstraction level, the difference is now we're trying to sort of go step above the integrations, and we are saying we'll also basically solve for reliability issues, which is like the biggest like pain point like in a lot of folks right now today when getting agent live in production, which is like I want to connect my agent and I also want my agent to actually end up working after those integrations. And like Composio is basically in a way, think about it like collecting all of this like skills. So think about it this way. When you drive a car and like you drive a car today and you drive a car months later, the skill of driving a car has changed. You have probably learned a bunch of different things. You drive your car better, but that doesn't happen with like agents today. So agents don't learn. So if my agent is connecting to Salesforce and Salesforce has like 10,000 different parameters and like it keeps messing up those parameters every time, it will keep doing that even like the third time, the fifth time, the 30th time, right? But like with Composio, what we do is like we essentially understand from your usage pattern and like we basically change the agentic tools itself to make it more and more compatible for your use case. And so what we are doing is we are essentially trying to figure out depending on the usage pattern, like how do you best represent this tool? And it could be Salesforce, it could be anything else. So that like in your use case, like agent doesn't have to use as many tokens, maybe it's far more sort of accurate, it's way better. And this could be done on top of MCP. This could be done without MCP also.
Right. I guess so. That, I mean, that's what Composio does. But I guess I'm just curious on your take on MCP because, like you said, there's a lot of hype on it. And for me as a non-technical person, I mean, I read into it, but I'm curious on your take of like, what's the big difference? Like, what's the big thing you're supposed to get as a result of MCP being a thing? You know what I mean?
Oh, sure. So I can tell you like my take on it, right?
Yeah.
Like and the way I think about it, which is okay. So when you think about integrations, there are always like two kinds of integrations, like like natively, like you are actually thinking about. So let's take a product like ChatGPT, right? So the first integrations I would think about would be like native integrations for ChatGPT. So I'd be like, hey, ChatGPT natively supports like this, I don't know, 50 applications. But then the second thing I think about is like custom GPTs, right? Which is like, oh, I can extend ChatGPT by basically these custom GPTs or by basically like adding all of these other things to it, right? So one is integrations that like basically the app developer is looking to support because they just feel it's native to the experience. And then one is the kind of integrations that are like basically something that the user wants, but it's not super native, but it's like very specific to, hey, I want my ChatGPT to connect with Outlook because that is what I care about. And so MCP enables the second kind of integrations, which is like you could turn any sort of smart software into an extensible thing so that as a user, you could say, hey, I want my specific software like Cursor to connect with Jira, right? Because Jira is what I care about. Or maybe calendar to Cursor because that's maybe what I care about, right? And so MCPs are great that way because like if every software becomes kind of like an MCP client or like maybe let's say good softwares like that you are using, maybe they become MCP client, you have this advantage of connecting that client to a server which could be like by Notion. Then you might say, hey, my this software now connects to Notion, right? Because that's the integration I care about. So that's my take on it, which is like it creates a lot of value by making every software into an extensible thing that like other like users could decide what they want to connect it with.
And then maybe just to wrap it up here, like last quarter you raised what I see is a $29 million Series A from Lightspeed. Tell me about how that happened.
Yeah, so I think at some point, like growing pretty rapidly, we wanted to sort of expand the team. We wanted to hire a bunch of like research folks, right? And like in AI, it's like very expensive essentially. And so what you do need is like you need like more capital essentially to solve for it. I've realized this somewhere in the starting of this year that hey, we should be like figuring out like way to sort of raise some money so that like we can hire some folks that we really want to.
Because you were how many people at this stage?
Well, like somewhere around 10 people, 10 to 15, I would say. Yeah. So ended up realizing that need to sort of raise it somewhere around like end of January, February, because this is when like most VCs are active, because it's like a start of new year and like they're looking to sort of get into new deals, right? Uh, Ended up reaching out to a bunch of folks through our existing investors, through sort of friends, meeting a few of them. Like the race took like somewhere close to like 2 to 3 weeks, um, and like ended up starting to chat with a bunch of them like in the beginning of that sort of race cycle. Lightspeed was someone who we kind of like knew from before. So my co-founder knows the sort of partner very well. I also know about them from different friends, and so we had that personal relationship. So it became like pretty easy, because like when you trust and like know the person, it's just like way faster to sort of get into like the details of it, like essentially. And yeah, that's how we ended up like sort of converting Lightspeed into being an investor.
I mean, 2 to 3 weeks, obviously very, very fast, and it's still, $30 million Series A is a massive Series A. Like, do you have any kind of like tips or tricks or tactics, or even just a high level thinking of how you should go about raising a Series A, especially how you should go about raising one that is big and fast?
Yeah, I like many actually, but like, okay, so I would say the first thing you do need is like some level of hype, right? Um, so what you need to figure out is like right people should be talking about you, and they should be saying good things about you. You should have customers that absolutely love you, right? And they should just like if any like I think like at some point like a lot of our like people we are trying to raise from ended up reaching out to a bunch of customers, and they just heard like some insane amazing things. They were like, okay, this is like the craziest like customer calls we've been to. So like they just spoke so highly of the team and like the product that it just like it's a no-brainer. I think that helps. Other thing is like the story has to be right. So I think there are like different kinds of like raises. Like you could raise 15, you could raise 20, it's like you could raise 30. Like it's at the end of the day, valuation is like not something like that's like objective, it's like pretty subjective. So the story has to be something that you really think through. And like you are actually like basically practicing it a bunch of times before like going and telling it to folks out there. So the way I did it was like I ended up like practicing it with ChatGPT, which is like I don't know, like something like at least like most of my friends now do. It's like I had all my transcripts with all the VCs in a single ChatGPT session, and I used to say like, what did I say wrong? Where should I have improved? What are the questions I was not prepared for? What are the questions I did maybe like good, but like
Give me the perfected like 30-second or minute story of that you would have, that after all that like trial and error you now have.
It's been a while since I raced. I don't
Not that
remember
long,
that
man.
story
Come on, 3
particularly.
months.
But like the whole idea is this, right? Which is like the way like I at least I think about it is like you have essentially three layers, right? Like you have like the foundation models, you have like the infra in between, like you have the applications on top, right? And like today, like what's happening is like you have like some other layers like agentic frameworks and stuff like that, right? And today what's happening is that like foundation models are coming to the top, right? Like they're trying to sort of move further and further away to the top. What Composio does is like Composio essentially kind of enables foundation models, and like maybe at some point sort of becomes one of the de facto ways by which you can also take on the application layer. So think about it this way, like the reason you interact with Salesforce and the reason you interact with like any application out there is because like, yeah, they have your data, but like there's nobody else who could like break into that monopoly today, because like your sort of like interaction is like very geared towards like how you know Salesforce and how you think like basically you use Salesforce, how it has been fully customized for you. But like what if Composio could essentially break that barrier, and we could essentially become the de facto thing where which like let's say we just know exactly your user pattern on Salesforce, we're able to completely customize it for you. We know exactly here are like 4 fields in Salesforce that you care about, and we are able to sort of give that to you at the right places at the right time, right? And like so at some point we can break into the sort of monopoly of like application layer, and we can say like you don't really need to care about applications. All you need to care about is essentially foundation models and like Composio, and like both of this combined like sort of uh allows you to do whatever you were doing without even knowing at the back end if there is Salesforce or there is some other CRM or anything like that. And it's kind of already happening. 6 months back, like this was not something people like believed in. But now, like you probably would have seen, like a lot of your application interaction happens through ChatGPT or like happens through other sort of like chat interface.
You're a key. I mean, you're positioning yourself as like a key layer to this new language-based UI, where apps and icons and stuff either go away or become no longer primary.
Exactly. And that's a massive position. Like that's a massive market, right? And so yeah, like a lot of people were very bullish on that.
Perfect. Well, listen, man. Let's stop it there. Let me ask the three questions that we always end on. The first one is, when was the moment when you felt like Composio had true product market fit?
Never. I still don't know if we do have a true product market fit. I, I think like with AI it's very difficult, right? Like the market is changing at such a rapid rate. Like um, it's very hard to say. Like I actually have a PMF for a very long time. I would say there are moments in like pockets, in like the long duration when you feel like you're a PMF. Which is like when a user comes and says, "Holy shit, I love you guys." Okay, maybe I do have PMF, right? Like those are the moments, but like in general, I would say on average, probably never.
And was there a time when you felt like Composio might just not work and like things would just kind of blow up and fail?
Uh, Almost always. Still, like every day. Uh, it's like yeah, because like again, like with AI, it's like okay, like you have like a bunch of different questions. So you have like questions like, do I really matter? Which is the existential question of like, oh, foundation model like will like take over everything, AGI takes over everything, stuff like that. You have the other side of questions, which is like, hey, we're like too small. What if like we don't like accelerate quickly and like other companies like take our pie essentially, which is something also like in AI, which is happening a lot, right? So that would be another a bunch of like similar questions, I would say. But it's like, yeah, you're always afraid about like these things.
And then last question, what will be your number one piece of advice to an early stage founder that's building today?
I don't know. Okay, so I can give you maybe one advice that is like non-obvious, but like specifically for AI founders, which is like, don't believe too much in like what customers are talking about. Like basically, like if you're building a new product and if you have like very strong intuition on like why it will work, I would say this is like one of those times where like multiple products like iPhone could come out, which is like if you go ask people, they won't really tell you like your product is what they need. But if you just go build it and show it, they would really get it. So like for all the like founders in early stages who are building in AI, literally like if you have very strong intuition, just go and like do it. Like I think it's like very easy to build, so it's definitely worth like the whole sort of effort. And also there's a very good chance you are right.
Awesome. Soham, thanks so much for jumping on the show, dude. It's been great.
Appreciate it. Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Listen, when you go to like a restaurant, you eat a nice, meal, maybe a fancy one, maybe not. Do you leave a tip? I assume you probably leave a tip. You probably leave a tip 100% of the time. Well, guess what? A review is just like a tip. And I know you haven't been leaving one. So just like the waiter that doesn't get a tip after hours of great service, I'm getting a little frustrated. So take your phone out and leave a review. It helps the show move up rankings. It helps us get better guests. It doesn't just help me. It helps way more founders. Thank you.